Hey guys, welcome to Real Solutions, this section for this week. And today I'm going to be talking about a very challenging subject, but one that a number of you have asked some questions on that anonymous kind of question survey that I've set up. And so we are going to talk about it, and it is the topic of suicide. Not a fun one, obviously, not something super exciting to talk about, but I think it is important that we are open and honest about this subject. And so I'm going to try and answer some of these questions that you guys have submitted. Now, this is a tough one for me to talk about. In the spirit of honesty, I'll let you guys know that I've been kind of on both sides of the coin for this. I've had experiences with close friends who were feeling suicidal, and I myself have been in that place before as well. It is difficult. It is a very emotionally heavy topic. And so sometimes, it raises all these questions in our mind that I think have answers, but those answers can be difficult to see and to believe sometimes. But I'm going to do my best to go through this. Guys, I'll start off just by saying, if you are wrestling with questions like this or with suicidal thoughts, the best thing you can do is reach out to someone, okay? This video is not going to solve those issues for you. Talking to me or someone you trust, one of your youth leaders, a parent, a friend, is going to be very helpful when we look at something like this, especially something as heavy as this. Okay, but it raises to mind some questions that I want to try and answer, right? Questions like, why would God allow someone to commit suicide? Why would God allow something like that to happen? Does he not care about that person? Does he not love that person? Is he trying to punish that person's friends and family? Why? Why does God allow stuff like this to happen? There's kind of an answer to this, and I'm going to do my best. I think it encompasses a lot of this, but it also maybe raises more questions in our mind. But let me do my best, okay? Things that we see in the world that are evil, right? Or things that are in the world that cause us suffering, okay? So not just suicide, but things like murder and rape and just terrible things that we see in the world. Why does God allow any of that to happen? Here's, I think, a bit of an answer to that, okay? We all know that being forced to love someone or being forced into a relationship with someone is not a real relationship. It is not real love, right? Like, I'm married to my wife, Alyssa. If you guys found out that I had forced her to marry me, you'd probably think that was not a loving relationship, right? Or if you found out that your mom paid all these people $20 to come to your birthday party, right? You discover that they're kind of forced to be there or bribed to be there. That's not real love. That's not a real relationship. God is love. The Bible tells us God is love, okay? He's perfect and he's holy and he's loving, and he knows that if he were to force anyone to love him, that would not be real love. If he were to force anyone to have a relationship with him, that would not be a real relationship. Okay, so God gives us a choice because he's not going to force us. He gives us a choice, and that means, unfortunately, that we also have the choice to do things that are unloving, that are evil, that cause suffering and hurt and brokenness, okay? And God doesn't force anyone to obey him either, right? You can look around at yourself and at our world and pretty quickly figure that out, right? God is not forcing anyone to obey him or to love him or to follow him. Okay, so that leaves this option, this choice for us to do what is wrong and to go against what God says is good. Okay, evil is a result of our own choices. And so why does God allow things like this to happen? He allows it because he wants us to also be able to choose to have a real loving relationship with him. Okay, and that, I know it brings up all kinds of other questions potentially. If it does, ask me, okay? We can talk about this more. I know it's kind of a simplified answer. But we can also ask this question in a case like, if God has a plan for someone and it's just for them to commit suicide, what's the point? What's even the point of living if we are all going to die anyways? Heavy questions, right? Here's what I think we need to understand about this, okay? Because we talk about God's plans a lot, okay? And like I just said, God doesn't force anyone to follow him or to obey him. God has a plan in terms of offering. Jesus came, died, rose again, offers forgiveness to us. That's part of God's plan. God also has a plan. We're told that Jesus' second coming is going to take away sin and suffering. Okay, so God has those plans. But we can still go against him in this in-between period that we're in. And God could have created like an instant heaven, right? He could have just made it where there was no option for evil, no option for suffering right away, and just create people. But would that be true love with him? Would that be a real relationship with him? I feel like that's kind of just like him making a bunch of robots, right? Versus giving us the option, right? God gives us this life for a reason. And I don't always understand it. These questions I have asked myself lots of times, okay? Honestly. Okay? But God has given us this life for a reason. We need to trust him. We need to have faith in him even through the difficult times and even in the difficult things. There's a book in the Bible called Job that maybe some of you have read that tells this very interesting story of this man who worshiped God, and Satan comes to God and says he only worships you because you've given him all this good stuff, and if I take that away he won't worship you anymore. And so God says okay, and Job goes through like the worst few days of his life where he like loses all his wealth and a lot of his family and just all this terrible stuff. Sickness comes to him. And I'm summarizing this big time, okay? But Job kind of is thinking about his suffering. He talks to some friends about his suffering. And then actually at the end of the book, he talks to God about his suffering. He has like a conversation. And God essentially says, like, Job, where were you when I created the stars and everything you see? He essentially says, Job, I get that you have questions, but you've got to trust me because I see and I know so much more than you. And that's kind of where we have to come in this stuff too, right? It's like God sees eternity. God sees everything. He understands everything. He knows everything. And we do not. And so we need to trust him in some of these difficult questions that we have. And it's hard to do that. I know that it's hard to do that sometimes, especially when you are feeling depressed and suffering. But hopefully that answer makes a little bit of sense and gives us a little bit of clarity on that. Another big question that we often ask is, do you go to hell if you commit suicide? Even if you're a Christian, okay? And you'll hear different answers to this. Here's what I think, okay? I think that what determines whether you go to heaven or hell is whether or not you have put your faith and trust in Jesus. So I think that if you are a true Christian, that you would go to heaven even if you committed suicide. Okay, and why I believe that is I believe that Jesus died for our past, present, and future sins. He died for our sinfulness. Okay, and when we put our faith and trust in him, we are adopted into God's family. That's what the Bible tells us. We're adopted sons and daughters of God. And I don't think, like if you think of it like adoption papers, right? Okay, so we put our faith in Jesus. God signs, we sign, right? We're adopted into his family. I do not think that God is holding these and staring at us, waiting for us to sin, and then he rips them up until we ask for forgiveness again. Repentance and forgiveness are an important part of our relationship with God, but I do not think that after we've put our faith and trust in Jesus that any sin removes us from that. For example, like if I was walking down the street and I thought something selfish in my mind and then I got hit by a bus, I think I would still go to heaven. I think that Jesus' death and resurrection has forgiven me for all of my sin, including my future sin. So I do not think that if you commit suicide, you automatically go to hell. I think that whether or not you are a believer in Jesus determines that. Okay, and again, you might hear other opinions on that. I'm happy to have that discussion with you. And then someone asked kind of a question along this vein, am I messed up for asking questions like this? If you are, then I am too, okay? And I think we all ask questions like this, so please don't feel messed up for wondering things like this. They're difficult questions, and they don't always have easy answers, but it's okay to ask them, and God provides answers for us, I think. Now listen. if you're suffering, if you are struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts, here's a few things that I need you to know, okay? When we get in that place, we can often ask ourselves, does anyone actually care about me? You know, like, would anyone actually miss me if I was gone? Guys, the answer is always yes. If you are watching this video, then yes, someone cares, okay? I care. If you're a part of this youth group, or even loosely connected enough to be watching this video, I care about you, and I know that there are others who do too, okay? And I know I've been in that place before where it's easy to start to think no one cares. No, it's not true, okay? It's a lie. There is always someone who cares. There's always people who would miss you. There's always people who would just hurt deeply if you were gone. Another thing, another lie that we kind of believe is that our struggles are permanent. And this is a really helpful way to look at things, where you add right now, okay, to the end of something. So you're feeling like, man, life sucks. And we easily start to think that's permanent, right? Life is always going to suck. But if you say life sucks right now, that implies that it's going to get better. And guys, there is always hope that it's going to get better, okay? Don't see your struggles as permanent. Don't see your struggles as permanent. Another lie that we believe, and this again came up in some of these questions you've asked. Are you a burden for reaching out, for asking for help, telling people your struggles? No, you are not a burden. You are not a burden. I guarantee you someone would rather listen to you talking about your struggles than have you gone, okay? And that's a very blunt, kind of gross way of looking at it, but I promise you, okay, I would much rather hear from you all the time and listen to your struggles than the alternative of you being gone, okay? And I think that's true of all of us. You're not a burden for reaching out. You are not a burden for opening up about your struggles. That's a great way, a great thing to do. And guys, I'll say it again, okay? The best solution is always reaching out. Be honest. Be honest with your questions. Be honest with your struggles. Don't be afraid or ashamed. There are others like you who have experienced it. I have experienced it, okay? Reach out. Talk to someone. It is going to help. I promise you it's going to help. That is the way to go. Don't keep this burden on yourself. Don't be afraid to reach out. And guys, if you're struggling, please don't let today pass without reaching out to me or someone you trust about it, okay? It's so helpful. And then ultimately, my friends, true hope is found in Jesus. True hope is found in Jesus. He promises us everlasting life with him. He promises us that he loves us, that he cares about us, that he wants what's best for us. And even in these sufferings and these struggles that we go through, they can be used to grow us closer to him and to build our character and to help us learn more, okay? True hope is found in Jesus, and if you look around at other ways of living, I don't think you're going to find that hope in the same way that you are finding hope in Jesus. I know it's hard to see sometimes. I know if you're in that place of struggling, it's so hard to see the light. I've been there myself, but we have to remember that. We have to remind ourselves that true hope is found in Jesus, and you can make that choice. Right, if you haven't, to put your faith and trust in him and to find that true hope. I hope that you have already done that, or that you will do that. Okay, again, guys, tough topic. Thank you for listening. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns or just want to talk about your own struggles. I'm always available for that. Okay, thank you guys for tuning in.